everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Monster Report. Your host, Nick Adam, and I am here joined via Skype with Mr. Tim. Is it Meyer or Mayer?
Mayer. I've heard it too many times.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure of that. It's Mayer. Okay, good to have you, Tim. And Tim and I met because I purchased a few things from Facebook from him, some collectible items. I've got a few things on the way, and I'm real excited to get them. And some of them are autographed people out there, so look him up because there's some really good autographs that you want to get. Some from Akira Takarada and what else did you have in there? Robert Scott Field, your G-Festers, probably, right?
Yeah, and even Koichi Kawakita, and he's passed away, so... Yeah, that's a big one.
Look up Tim if you're looking for some stuff to buy. So, we're kaiju fans, especially Godzilla fans, and, some of us, it started later in life. I think for both you and I, it's when we were little. So, what drew you to kaiju films when you were little?
For some reason, I've always was fascinated by like dinosaurs. Like when I was a kid, I was a huge Barney kid. Like when I was really little, I was addicted to it, and it was not good. Then later, I got into Jurassic Park, which I still love to this day. I'm very excited for Dominion, Jurassic World Dominion coming out. And then my brother's dad, he mentioned to me, I remember where I was too. It was in Pennsylvania in Glenside. I was going down a road near a pizza place and a CVS that he said, "Did you ever hear of Godzilla?" And I was like, "No, I never heard of it." And then after a doctor's appointment across the street, there was a Hollywood Video. So for you older people, you remember what Hollywood Video is. I went in there and they were actually closing the store, and I remember they had Sea Monster, Tokyo SOS, Hedorah. They had a bunch of the Sony movies, and I remember just watching them like crazy. And then that like 50th anniversary trailer is so like nostalgic in my head when I hear like celebrating 50 years of Godzilla, and the guy says all the movies, even the Millennium movies, in correct order. And I always thought when I was a kid, they used footage from Tokyo SOS, for like the background, but I always thought they were from the movie itself. Like I thought, wait, why isn't that shot lining up? And I got older and went, oh, it's just Tokyo SOS. They just used the whole footage from. But yeah, then even I remember Blockbuster too. If anybody's from Pennsylvania, specifically Abington, there's a Target that's still there. Across the street now, I think it's like a Patient First or a doctor's place. It was a Blockbuster, and I remember renting Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla there. That's the movie I remember from there. And they had like Final Wars and I think Gigan as well. Yeah, I remember I bought Gigan and Mechagodzilla from there because I would rent it all the time, and I just bought it. And of course, obviously, the song, what's it? Low, the Apple Bottom Jeans. When I hear that song, I always think of me going to Blockbuster in Doylestown, and I rented GMK from Blockbuster, and it wasn't in the original case. It was in the Blockbuster, and then on the side, it had the title Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah. And it's so weird. I hear that song, and I'm like, God, I remember that. I just remember I hear that song, and I'm like, GMK pops into my head if you hear, low. So, yeah, but I just definitely, I got into it when I was 8, so.
And so we both have fond memories of the video store, especially going in there and renting them. Like you said, renting them so much you pretty much ended up buying it because, well, you're just throwing money at the fire. But when I was a kid, it was pre-internet, so the movies, we didn't really know what movies were out there. So like the video store might have them in stock, might not. And so I went to the library to find out what movies they had. And of course I was asking my video store, hey, can you get these in so I can rent them? And in the end, I just had to go out there to, you remember what, Suncoast movies and things like that, when those movie stores were out there, to go buy them so you could watch them over and over and over again. And my video store, like yours, had Mechagodzilla and Gigan. It had 85, which was my first Godzilla. And it, believe it or not, had the Gamera VHS series. And that's how I got introduced to Gamera. So that was very
Okay.
cool.
I know what you're talking about. It was the Sandy. Oh God,
Oh,
Sandy
Sandy
something.
Frank.
That's it,
Yeah.
Sandy Frank dubs. Yeah, the Mystery
Yes,
Criteria 3000. They use those dubs.
and they were in the children's section actually.
I can believe that, especially the Gamera. It's not not Guardian of the Universe. Obviously, that would be in sci-fi because Guardian of the
Yeah,
Universe. Oh, what a good movie. Um, I
yeah.
remember. I don't know if you remember how this far back, like 2003, at least that year. There was a double pack. I remember at Best Buy. Like it's weird. I remember very vividly. I went to Best Buy with my dad. He had this desktop that he needed to fix, and while we were waiting, I was looking, and I found a double pack, not like side to side, like back to back. They were side to side next to each other of Destroy All Monsters and Guardian of the Universe. And I begged my dad. I was like, Dad, can I buy it, please? And I went home and I watched, Destroy All Monsters, and I watched Gamera, and that's how I remember watching that film. But yeah, you were saying 85, you were saying 1985 was your first film. I remember like this is how old school we probably are. The way I saw it was this. This is how I saw it, not by VHS, but a bootleg DVD. Because now,
Right.
because it's now there's the crack and release Blu-ray that they did of 1984. But for me to watch this movie, I had to buy it off iOffer. I remember my dad would buy it off iOffer, and it's so weird. It's like now everything's on streaming, but I was kind of one of the more last generations to have these like bootleg DVDs before they actually were put out on DVD or Blu-ray. See, the kids today, they're lucky. They get to just have a high-res version made. I had a
Yeah.
low-res.
Yeah, we had to really do some like treasure hunting to find them. And yeah, I got my collection of bootlegs as well. I'll keep them forever, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. We had to do what we could to find them. And you and I finding them was such a treasure hunt. We felt like we kind of struck gold. And I also, had people kind of criticizing me. It's like, okay, you're really obsessed with Godzilla and kaiju films, and aren't they just a guy in a suit? I mean, how much of this can you really like, and why is it that entertaining? Do you get some every once in a while some criticisms as to why you like kaiju films, tokusatsu films, of the like? What kind of criticisms do you get?
Well, when I was a kid, I was bullied horrendously for Godzilla. I was the Godzilla kid. I got bullied like at first when I first got into it. Some of the other kids thought it was kind of cool. Like, oh, you're collecting the figures and blah blah blah. And especially as I got into like junior high and high school, everybody knew me as the Godzilla guy. And even now, like my friend, like if any of my friends like see anything Godzilla related, they'll know it's me. And my family, they're not into Godzilla, and I'm the only person that actually watched it. Like my grandfather, he watched the original Godzilla. He told me that it was on TV, the King of the Monsters with Raymond Burr, not the new one, but now we have to say the two different movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, he would say like, "Oh, I watched King of the Monsters. It was on TV. It was pretty good." And my family, I would always be like, "Oh, I want to buy this Godzilla thing," and they're like, here he goes. They're just like, here he goes. He wants to buy this. But yeah, but after the bullying was really bad up until Godzilla 2014. I think at that point, that's when it actually started to die, because there was a kid when the trailer came out, the teaser trailer in like January of that year. I was like squealing like a kid. I was like, oh my God, Godzilla looks great. And he's like, well, you like the stupid lizard? Oh, it's dumb. And I'm like, it looks good. And even another kid said, it actually does look pretty decent. And then the movie came out, and that Monday, I'll never forget, he said that Monday, he said, Tim, I'm sorry, that actually was pretty cool. He said it was a pretty good movie. And I'm like, yeah, I got one person to finally say, all right, it's okay. And like even my best friend, I've known her since I was like 5 years old. She saw King of the Monsters with me, and she saw like the scene when in the Arctic when Godzilla comes out of the ice, and then the classic theme plays. I was like clapping like yeah, and she's like, oh, my best friend the nerd, and she was like she was enjoying the movie, but she was also like that, like he's happy, and oh boy, like here he goes, he's in his magical land. But
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, my family, they get why I mean, they're just like, well, he likes dinosaurs. That's pretty much why he likes it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty much the one person I know that actually legit loves Godzilla. But
Sure. And
yeah,
us kaiju fans, we're kind of few and far between. It's sometimes in your hometown, even it's hard to find, a couple of other fans of this genre. Obviously, someone who's a sports fan, they can explain to you why they love sports and all that. That's great. I'm not a sports fan. I don't really care for that. There are people who are, this is funny, wrestling fans, and they know
yeah.
it's fake, and we know this is fake, but we don't care. It's entertaining. It's
Mhm.
absolutely, it strikes a chord with us, and there's just something about it that we find rewatchable, So that's why when I think about my favorite Godzilla films is in like rewatchability. How many times do I find myself rewatching it? Now, there's other ways and methods we kind of rank our Godzilla films, aren't there? And you were gonna share with me some of your rankings, but before we get to your rankings, I'd like to know kind of what your method is of how you say, this one's up top, this one's, down lower. What method do you use?
I would just say, I mean, everybody's different. As you know, everybody has these like way different films. Like, depending, it all depends on the person and what kind of genre they like a film. Like, do they like like drama? Do they like comedy? Do they like the horror? I mean, because it's pretty much common. Obviously, the one film that everybody will put in their top three is 1954. I mean, there's no if and but. Everybody will put 54 in. And it's like the original King Kong. It's like when you try to say what's the best King Kong movie, you pretty much go 33 because that was the revolutionary movie. And and I mean, yeah, it just depends on the preference. But mine's a little interesting. I'm literally staring at it. It's right next to me. I showed you that I wrote it down, and I'm like thinking about it, like, okay, because I ranked the films before Shin Godzilla came out. I remember it was in between 2014 and Shin Godzilla that I actually was like, all right, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just went down that list from 1 to 30. And I was like, okay, but it's weird. Like, as I've gotten older, I'm 22 going on 23. Like, it's so weird when you're younger, you think like, oh, some of these are the best films. And then you get older and you rewatch them with like a film critique, like, okay, how is this as an actual film? Like directing, music, writing. Like, I feel like that goes into it, but also at the same time, it's personal. Like, oh, I grew up with this movie, because there are going to be a couple that you go, oh yeah, I watched it when I was a kid, and I've always loved the film. And I know probably yours will be 1984, which that's on my list. But it's just, yeah, it just all depends which one you kind of like, and it's all about personal preference, I think.
So yeah, some of it's the nostalgia factor, and some of it's how they age with us. You're exactly right. How you've gotten a little older, a little wiser. Maybe some of us, maybe not. I'm almost 40 here, and I might say sometimes I'm reverting back. I'm now collecting, not just Godzilla, but He-Man, stuff from my childhood. But like as I've gotten older, I guess I've found more respect for some of the films that maybe I didn't have on my rewatchability list. For instance, the 54, which of course for us 54, or it's actually King of the Monsters with Raymond Burr. It was
Hmm.
later we got the chance to watch, the actual Japanese version of Gojira. But
Yep.
like as far as that original with Raymond Burr, still great. But it was low on my list only because of black and white when I was a kid. Because
Hmm.
black and white to me was boring, and it's there's no excuse or whatever. It's a kid. You want a color film, and you want more Godzilla, and the 54 film didn't have either of those. It had some Godzilla, but there was a lot of talking scenes which bored me as a kid. Now I'm older. Now I see what the art of what that film is paying off, and how different that film is, and how much more engaging that film is to me as an adult. And so I find it higher on my list for that reason. Same thing with the original Kong. Sometimes I would show it to my students when I used to teach, and they were just kind of turned off by it because it's in black and white. And I'm saying, yes, it's in black and white
Right.
because
Yeah.
that's because it comes from that time period, and they just simply didn't have the technology for color. But that doesn't diminish the quality of that film. When I just say, give it some time, watch it, and you will get drawn in. And
Mhm.
so they want to be drawn in immediately with, the special effects and all this. So yeah, that's why maybe our rankings kind of shift as we get older, isn't it? And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because honestly, well, and it's funny because if you don't know, I mean, I feel like for general people, they might not know this, but some hardcore fans will know. There actually is a colorized version of the original King Kong on
Right.
VHS, and there's also Mighty Joe Young, which I actually have that. Because I remember I was very interested when I was like, they colorized it, and then even now, I want to find it. I would like to watch it just to one time just to see what it would look like is a Son of Kong, because they never put that on VHS, and I haven't seen any like bootleg DVDs of a colorized version of that film. And, because I actually just watched that film, I think a few nights ago, Son of Kong, and I actually really like that. I think it's an underrated sequel where it's not even as great as the first one, but if you watch it because of the Carl Denham character, like he's like, oh, I killed Kong, I basically killed King Kong, and then he sees Kinko, the son, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kill, I feel horrible for what I did. Like it's a great, character film, but I don't know. I mean, just yeah, the original King Kong. I bought the I don't know if you know which release I'm talking about, but it's like a booklet. It's a Blu-ray, and it's like a booklet, and then it has a
Yeah.
disc at the very end. I there was one on eBay, and as of this recording, it's still on there. The one guy wanted $250, and I'm like, no. I was like, no. But there was like another one for like 90, and I was like, okay, I'll pay 90 for it because 250, 90, I'll pay it. But um, yeah, but I mean, the original King Kong, man, what a classic. In 1954, and because I don't know if it was, I think it was they colorized the trailer. There was that thing where they colorized it, and I'm thinking
Yeah.
that would be really interesting to watch a colorized version of 1954 in 4K. Like that would be really like was the original suit gray? Was it brown? Because there were rumors that it's brown, and then even like Anguirus was green. The original
Yeah.
Anguirus suit was green color. So it's so weird with like black and white and color. It's so weird to think what would it look like, but it's just the charm of it, black and white. You gotta stick with the original. And
Right. Yeah.
and even like it's funny, even my ex fiance, I showed him the original 54 film. There was a night where I said, "Do you want to watch it?" And he's like, "All right, fine." And he watched it, and he's not he wasn't a monster fan. And he went, "That's actually a really good movie." He was in black and white 54. Even he said that was a good movie. He's like, "Thank you for showing me that." So
Yeah. Yeah, it
but
is engaging. It draws you in to the characters because the characters actually. Now, was it the Raymond Burr American release or
it
the
was actually the original, the Japanese
Ja-
cut.
Japanese cut? Yeah, and of course that one really draws you into those characters. To really get to know them. Takarada's character, of course. All of them, and so I watch that, and sometimes I'll watch it with some Kurosawa films because of the black and white era, because I see so many similarities, and those are also, some of us kaiju fans are also Kurosawa fans as well. So yeah, that's kind of the thing that has grown on me as I've gotten older, and I wouldn't have, as a kid, probably watched a Kurosawa film because I just, again, black and white, and there wasn't enough monsters, so
Mhm.
there was none. So in Kurosawa. Anyways, we're gonna get to your list here in a second, but I do gotta. This is one we didn't talk about before. This is something in the rankings that I gotta ask you. Did any of the non-Godzilla kaiju films make it in your list? What I'm talking about is the Rodan, Mothra, Varan, any of them.
I made my list of just Godzilla, but I will say they probably won't be, but because I thought, just Godzilla, but I will say I actually have it right here. There is a film trilogy that I actually have a very soft spot because I love the character, and it's really weird, but it's the Mothra trilogy.
Ah,
Like
yes.
it's like Rainbow Mothra, the one that's right here. Like that's my favorite design. Like I'm in a minority where I think that's, for me personally, I think that's my favorite design. When I think of Mothra, I think of her or the one from Battle for Earth. What you call it? I mean, honestly, the Mothra versus Godzilla, that puppet, that was the most convincing looking because E.G. Tsuburaya did such a phenomenal job on that. the scene where she's like flying and you see her legs move, and it's like that looks better than Battle for Earth, and I'm a huge fan of Battle for Earth. So it's
right.
It's like I don't know. I mean, I love Mothra, the Heisei Gamera trilogy. I mean, come on, it's the Heisei Gamera trilogy, Garden Universe, and Iris. And then Gamera the Brave, I think, is very underrated. Like, I don't think that film gets enough attention. Because, I mean, is it as great as Iris? No. I mean, it's like, if it's not like it's way down here, but it's like, if, it's like they did the box set, which I do actually have to buy that once I can figure out my, finance situation. I do want to get it. I had the set of, the big box set, but I sold it. And I would like to just, for my collection, I'd like to just get the smaller ones of all the Gamera films. But, I mean, at least it's cool where they included Gamera the Brave in the Heisei set. So after you watch Iris, you can watch Gamera the Brave. And then even someone on YouTube, which I think it's still up, someone did a fan cut where it's the same exact film, except they use Gamera roars rather than that stock dinosaur roar. Okay. And it's so like... Oh, because when I was a kid, I was so used to that kind of noise instead of the of the Gamera screech, and it's like, why couldn't they just pay like $20,000 just to use the roar? Because it's like Gamera's iconic, like the Gamera icon. Like I actually love the Heisei roar. It's weird. I love Heisei roars. It's so weird. I love the Heisei roars. Like, what's probably my favorite version of Godzilla's roar, which I might be in a minority. I don't know if you know the exact two noises, but they used it from King Kong versus Godzilla to Invasion of the Astro Monster, and then they used it in the trailer for Sea Monster. It's this like and then the second one's like ow. It's like I should like look it up, but it's like that distinctive roar, the two roars. Mostly in King Kong versus Godzilla, you hear it. Like when he rolls into the ocean, like that's one of the roars. It's like that roar. I hear that. I'm like, God, I love that. And then my second favorite being the 1992 roar. I'm in a very little minority where I think that's actually a cool roar. When I hear it, I'm like, Godzilla.
Right. You can almost identify the films by the Godzilla roar in it. Obviously, a lot of us can identify the films just by seeing Godzilla's face and what suit design was used, which I sometimes have to point that out to people. It's like he constantly changes film to film to film. Sometimes they reuse the suit with some minor changes. Sometimes it's drastic changes. But but like you said, some honorable mentions of the non-Godzillas, like the Gamera Heisei series and the Rebirth of Mothra series there that are high on your list. So, with all that said, we've just got a top 10 list, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got
All right, let's hear it, and we'll go maybe one by one. You want to start with 10?
Sure. All right, this one I feel like is going to be the biggest, like, what kind of film on the list, and it's just, I can kind of, like, explain it. My number 10 is Son of Godzilla. And people would go like, what? Because, yes, Godzilla looks terrible. Manila is just, oh, God. But I don't know, like, I feel like that's a great film where if you're depressed, like, if you have, like, a bad day or whatever, I feel like that's a movie that will cheer you up. Like, I think the music in it is really good. Like, I could listen to it. Like, there was a time when I was at work and it was snowing. The first thing I did, I pulled out my phone, I pulled out the fight music in the snow with Godzilla and Kumonga. I just went outside, saw snow, and heard the and just listen, go. But I don't know. I mean, Son of Godzilla is just very, like, that's very nostalgic because I used to watch that on VHS a lot, and and I just, it's a film I put on once in a blue moon if I'm like, I just need something to cheer me up. It's pretty much, that'll be one. And I actually like the old dub, not the TriStar and that, but like the old VHS. So for fans, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look on eBay, Son of Godzilla VHS, and that's the dub I'm talking about. Yes, at least they're not annoying.
I'm with you on that, actually. I like the old dub too, and that's nostalgic because when I was growing up, it was shown on TV, on TNT and TBS, and I taped it off of TV, on my recorder and watched the heck out of it before I got the official VHS. So that's a one that's good to watch in the winter because of how nice and warm it is on that island when they keep changing and messing with the climate. So, except for the end when it snows, I guess. So, whatever.
Yeah, especially with right now in the U.S., Texas, PA, everywhere. Oh.
Yeah, I'm in Indiana and we're covered in snow too. So, bust out Son of Godzilla, right?
Yeah, just pop that on. That, and for some reason, I know this isn't kaiju, but also Young Frankenstein. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why I think of that movie. But next up, I actually have it right here. Another probably controversial one, Battle for Earth for me.
Okay.
Because I feel like with that one, I love the character of Mothra. I would say, obviously, my ranking of monsters is obviously Godzilla, and then Mothra's right below it. I would say if you watch it as a Mothra film, it's great. Like, if you watch it like, okay, this is Mothra's movie, Godzilla's in it, but it's mostly Mothra's film, I think it's pretty decent. I mean, is it the best Heisei movie ever made? No. And it's not a film where if people said, oh, I don't like it, you know, it would be like, what? You know what I mean? It's not something I'd be totally surprised because, you know, it pops up on top 10 worst list. But I don't think it's as horrible as people say it is. Like, if someone said they would rather watch the anime trilogy over Battle for Earth, I'd be like, whoa. I'd be like, whoa. But I don't know. I mean, the music, and I will say, inarguably, you can say what you want, but the music in it is brilliant. Akira Ifukube, honestly, that I think that's probably one of his best soundtracks because his revamped Godzilla theme, which was used in GMK, Mothra's theme, Batra's theme, like, it's just so good. And I can listen to that by itself. You know, I can just get the soundtrack, put it on, and just, I'll, like, know the scene in my head and listen to it because it's such, I don't know, I just love the music in the Mothra's part.
It's a great film, and I love seeing Mothra and Batra together, you know, just wailing on Godzilla. It's a great film.
All right, number 8. For me, number 8 is Godzilla 2000.
All right.
I like that one. That one I remember Christmas Eve when I was a kid, my brother and I, you know, we actually, you know, we were waiting, you know, I remember waking up at like 12 o'clock in the morning, seeing presents, and I'm like, you know, we were waiting for my parents to get up, and I'm like, oh, my brother and I said, can we watch Godzilla 2000? He went, all right, fine. So we put it on, and I've watched it. And I think Godzilla, I mean, I think that's definitely a very good introduction film for any general person, like, what's Godzilla? I would say 2000 is a very good, like, that's one of the few I would say, hey, show them 2000. Which I would say preferably the American cut because, you know, obviously now with Sony, they put the Japanese version on the Blu-ray, and you watch it, and it's like the director of him, something Okawara, I can't say his first name, but he did like Mechagodzilla 2, Mothra, and Destroya, and you know, very well directed films. And then you see 2000 and you just watch the Japanese cut and you go, this is the film you put out? Like the editing in it, it's just like the sound effects and the music just not fitting. It's like, I don't know. It's like kind of an essay where it's like, okay, this is a good first draft. Like, okay, this is a good first cut of the film. And then the American version, like, okay, you fixed it up and made it better. But I don't know. It's just very enjoyable. And, you know, I would just definitely say it's a great introduction to Godzilla film. That's what I would say about it.
Yeah, and that American cut has good pacing, where maybe the Japanese cut, to a Japanese audience, might be just fine because some of the pacing might be, you know, just fine for them. You know, spending a little bit more time of him standing there looking at a footprint, for instance. It's like, come on, let's go. An American audience, we're kind of like, move it, and maybe a Japanese audience would be fine with taking a little bit more time to take that in. It's just maybe cultural, but I agree with you. The American cut's great of that film.
All right, number 7, I have Mothra versus Godzilla, the original, not Battle Earth, but the original. I mean, that movie, it's very, very, very good. Like, it's just, you know, Mothra is like the peanuts, you know, the peanuts in it, you know, they're great. Godzilla is so evil in that movie, and the music and the effects, it's just, I mean, it's just kind of common knowledge. It's like, that's just one of the best Godzilla movies, you know, just of how dark Godzilla was. Like King Kong versus Godzilla was a comedy and it wasn't really as serious, and then they just do a complete 180 with, you know, Mothra versus Godzilla, treated really serious, like, oh, Godzilla's attacking, and, you know, It's just, yeah, it's very, very good. And plus it's very, because I remember very young, like watching that film and really, even at a young age, really liking it. Because it is a little, I would say it's a little slower paced, than some of the other films, but it's still very good.
Hmm. Yeah, it's one of the favorites. I got to share this with you before you go on to your next list. Is the Laserdisc copy of Godzilla versus it's Godzilla against Mothra is what it says. This is the Japanese Laserdisc, and it has both the American release and Japanese release. But what's cool is I did get autographed by Mr. Takarada and Godzilla himself.
Nakajima.
Nakajima, before he passed away. This was actually at the convention, which was his last convention, was in Indiana, actually, and I got to meet him, got an autograph, and didn't get to have an interview with him. Unfortunately, we did get an interview with Kitagawa, which was great, but he was just in such bad shape physically, not feeling well, and obviously we weren't going to push him for an interview. But to have Mr. Nakajima and Takarada on the same disc, actually, so that's one of the treasures I'll always have. So yes, great film, one of the favorites. Also a great commentary on the classic media set.
Oh yeah, I used to listen to them all the time when I was younger. I should listen to them again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I listen to him every once in a while, and here's something I forgot about, or and catch things that I didn't catch before. So yeah, great one. What are we up to? Number 6, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also one thing, I've gone to G-Fest several times in my life, and like I said, I've met Koichi Kawakita. Like that was a big one for me personally. Like wow, like the guy who made Godzilla 1989. And it was always a shame that I've always wanted to meet Haruo Nakajima, and I never got to meet him because he was there at G-Fest before, and then he passed away. I'm like, man, he would have been one person I would have loved to have signed the original Gojira. That would have been very cool. But I mean, it was great to meet some of them, and it's just a shame. But yeah, he was Godzilla. I mean, there's no ifs and buts. Haruo Nakajima is Godzilla.
That's right. I still have yet to meet Mr. Satsuma. So
that he was very cool. Like he signed my stuff, and he had me do like the Godzilla pose, and I'm like, that was like a highlight. Like, oh, that's pretty neat. Megumi Odaka too. That was the big one for me. Megumi Odaka.
Mm-hmm.
That was my big one. But
very cool.
Yeah. But my number 6 is 84/85. For some reason, whenever I watch it, I always lean towards 85, even though I know 84 is the better cut. Like it's weird. I think it's the like you said, like I was saying, the power of nostalgia. Like I'm very familiar with 85 and some of the music cues from that film, DEFCON 4. I think some of those the music in that was good. Like the music they inserted in it sounded more serious. Especially in the credits. After they play the military march, I think that one cue was very, very well done. And I remember as a kid being startled by the Bambi versus Godzilla, like when I first watched it, like because I showed you I had the bootleg DVD, and this was how I watched it, and they had the Bambi versus Godzilla before the film. And I just remember as a kid I was so scared there was gonna be a jump scare or like blood was gonna spew out. And then I got older, it was just Bambi getting his legs squished. You just see his legs up out. And I'm thinking, oh, that's not scary. Just being like, oh, okay. But also, yeah, just Raymond Burr, you could just tell, especially in 85, you could tell he actually respected Godzilla. I mean, you could tell in King of the Monsters, he actually took it seriously. He wasn't being like, oh, look, a giant dinosaur. He wasn't being funny, and obviously for people who don't know, apparently 85 was rumored to be when they got the rights to it, it was going to be a comedy, and then Raymond Burr said, no, you got to treat this more seriously, instead of this being funny, like make this a more serious film. And his version of the film is serious. When he's on screen, he's like, you can't stop Godzilla, you're not going to be able to do anything. And then they're drinking Dr. Pepper being like, oh man, they need horse tranquilizers. And it's like, I'm like, what? Like, really? And then you just see Raymond Burr look over, or the urban removal project that got going over there, and you just see the camera cuts in when he's like, Oh no.
Oh, I know.
It's like, oh no. But I don't know, but yeah, 84. I mean, the music. That's a very nostalgic film for me, especially since it was one of my earliest Godzilla films. The 84 design. It's just very iconic. The 84 design and the roar. The deep bellowing roar. Um, yeah, and I mean, especially the ending with the volcano. I mean, one of the best moments in the franchise.
Right. And the 84, 85 was one where, since it was always me growing up as a kid, I guess in my head, I always thought that they actually always built a giant Godzilla, huge to scale. And like, I even remember an episode of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where there was, in the cartoon, obviously, a robotic monster destroying the city, and they were filming a movie obviously in that show. And so the idea was that maybe a lot of these giant monster movies actually did 1-to-1 scale robots, and in 84 had the Cybot, but it was the only time that was ever really done. There were 1-to-1 scale feet, I think, in like Astro Monster, and of course they made the 1-to-1 scale feet in 84. But as far as actual to scale, it just and even the Cybot's not to scale. I think he's something like 30 feet, 25 feet, something like that tall, but still big, and very cool to see. The pre-Jurassic Park animatronics and robotics that went into that, and that's kind of why it stands out. Love it or hate it, for the fans, it was doing something different than the other G films that are out there. So that's, and of course, nostalgia.
Next, I'll probably number 5. I mean, this is probably one of the newer ones, Shin Godzilla. I mean, Shin. At first, I'll never forget when I watched it. I mean, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it, which if you haven't, why? The ending with the creatures on the tail, I'll never forget. I was in the theater. I looked and I went, what? Like, I was so confused by it. I was like, wait a minute, Godzilla has humanoids coming out of his tail? And then as I've watched it multiple times, it's one of those movies that when you first watch it, you either don't like it or you just don't get it. And then when you watch it more times, you're actually like, this is actually a really great film. And just Shin, it's like, I would say, because I love the 2014 Legendary films, and it's not like if they're not on my top 10, I'm not a fan of them. I definitely, King of the Monsters for me is a very, it's not a perfect movie, but it's good in 2014. But Shin Godzilla, they finally did something different with it. They didn't just do the same thing, kind of like 1984. It's like, you see the fourth form the entire time, and then he either dies or he just goes back to the sea. They changed it up. The music, Prosecution of the Masses and Who Will Know, just beautiful pieces of music. And the atomic breath scene in that film, it's just beautiful to look at. Like, it's beautiful and haunting that you just see, like, wow, Godzilla was killing a lot of people. And then, it's a shame that Toho, they're probably not going to make a sequel to it. And it's like out of any Godzilla movie to make a sequel to that. We want a sequel to Shin Godzilla. I want to know what happens. Because my interpretation of that movie, I think Hideki Anno was like, oh, it's up to your interpretation. But it's like, when Godzilla freezes, there's nothing there. You know what I mean? The minute you see when he freezes, there's nothing on that tail. And then when you cut back to the shot, there's these people coming out. So I think it was his fifth form that was just evolving, and that it's actually real. It's not like, oh, because Toho Kingdom put on their site like, oh, he was in the process of it and then it stopped. It's like, no, it didn't, because you would have seen them come out right when he freezes. When the coagulant kicked in and he does that last roar from 84, you would have seen them. But yeah, I mean, just Shin Godzilla, political film. I love it. Like, that's another movie I gotta watch too, is Shin, because Godzilla in it is he's cool in it.
He is very cool, and like you said, they definitely did something different, and it has been a while since we've seen a standalone Godzilla versus the military, and I do like those films. I mean, what we got, the original and 84, and as far as it goes, really, unless he's fighting another monster, he's fighting the military, and I think that's kind of back to basics, actually. So it's very cool to see that going back to the original, and seeing we're vastly outmatched by this monster. We're gonna have to get creative. what are we going to do? Trying something different. We could try the same thing, but why not? Why not go ahead and do some changes? Does it still stick to the character of what Godzilla is? Yes, I feel like a lot of them do. When Shin Godzilla comes out, Godzilla is just this menace that is just, like the nuclear bomb being the allegory for the nuclear weapons, that you can't do anything about him. You just got to get out of his way. So Shin Godzilla really encompassed that by how destructive he is. It's like you got to get away from him, or find a very innovative solution to what he is. But you're still going to have to deal with the destruction. So, does it still stay true to the character of it? Change the suit, change the design, sure. Go right ahead, but that's kind of why I guess some of these newer iterations could be divisive with the fans, couldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, especially with like Goromaki, at the beginning, where you were like, where is he? And then they talk about him in the movie. They're like, oh, where did he go? And then you see like the tail. They said what happened to him in the end, and then you see the tail, and you're like, okay, so he mixed himself with Godzilla. So that was a new thing with it. Like, okay, that's very unique. My fourth is Invasion of the Astro Monster.
All right.
Like
Great.
that one, I don't know what it is. Like, I remember as a kid, just like really falling in love with that movie. I found it at a yard sale. I found the Scimitar VHS and I watched it and I loved it. Even now, like even though it's Godzilla's least amount of screen time in the franchise, he's only in it like I think 5 or 6 minutes in the whole film. It's like Nick Adams is really good at Kira Takarada, Akira Kubo. They're so good in it. Like if you watch it knowing like, okay, this is obviously a human story with like Godzilla rode in and Ghidorah at the last minute, like barely being in it. It's a good like human drama film. It's a very nostalgic film, and even with me, I'm such a fan of that movie. Are you familiar with Showa Video, by the way?
Yes.
You're familiar? I actually bought the Toho Champion cuts of all the films they did. And I remember when I got it, the first one I watched was Invasion of the Astro Monster, and I'll never forget, I was sitting there, I knew this movie so well, I was like, oh, they cut that moment. Oh, they shortened that. Oh, they cut that moment. I was like, geez, I know that movie too well, where I know exactly, it's like a quiz, where if they write, okay, if Toho said, okay, what did we cut? I could be like, oh yeah, you cut that, you edited this. But, I don't know, yeah, it's just, I love that film, and it's just, yeah, it's such a great film, in my opinion.
Great film, great visuals of the interplanetary work that they did to get the human characters to Planet X and all that. I still love the pseudoscience in that. I know it's out there because it's like, Planet X just beyond Jupiter, in the Scorpion constellation, and you're just like, there's a constellation between Jupiter and Saturn. I mean, it's. So you just write some of that off and just say, look, it's a classic sci-fi. Do you enjoy it? Can you put your brain maybe somewhat aside at a certain point? But I still love seeing them, land on Planet X and dealing with the Exians and what their goals were and how they outsmart them. And of course, the chemistry between Nick Adams and Kira Takarada is just fantastic. Love that film.
Yeah, it's great. Let me see. Number 3, GMK. I mean, that's one of the other films I watched recently was GMK. That movie is just, I mean, it's so good. I mean, I know it's very different with like Godzilla's origin being like basically a ghost, like the spirits of the soldiers from World War II. And just, the music in it, and Shizuke Kaneko, him directing it, like, you could tell, like, he was definitely a fan, or, you could tell he was very excited about the film. And, I mean, honestly, I feel like it would have been better if they went with the original concept of, like, Anguirus and Varan and, Baragon, because it's like, they make, even though, I'm a huge Mungus Mothra fan, and I really love King Ghidorah, they really made him weak. Sure, it was a marketing thing that the president at the time said, yeah, you have to use Mothra and King Ghidorah if we wanted to make this movie. But even still, it's still a great film. The music in it especially Cowatoni. His music is great in it. But also, for me, it's weird. I actually like the dubbing of that film. Like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like. I mean, sure, you usually watch Japanese, the dubbing of Japanese, depending on which film. But I actually like GMK's dub, because it had some of the moments in it. Like my favorite line is when Yuri comes home. And she goes like, "Oh, father, what a surprise! Hey, Yuri, reporting for duty." And he's like, "I don't find this funny." Like I've always loved that line in the dub, but yeah, but I just love that film. It's so good.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with GMK. Great designs, great story. It's so engaging, and I love the fact that they go to a mythological background rather than it being scientific necessarily, which we have a lot of that in the Godzilla series. Pseudoscience, like we talked about, and some sciencey science, but we've got in that going back to the idea that these are ancient mythological creatures, and the world kind of opens up at that point, that there's some sort of ancient rivalry, which is very cool, kind of like the Clash of the Titans idea there. So yeah, I think that's a great twist on the Godzilla series, and it's up there for me too.
Mm-hmm. And then for my number two, the original 1954. I mean, summarization, it's the one that started it all. Very dark, allegoric film. It's just the nuclear bomb, and it's Ishiro Honda, Akira Takarada, Akihito Hirata. Him. Just everybody in that movie is so great, and it's just, honestly, there's not to say with your top 10, but if you don't have the original, you're not a true fan if you don't say, oh, it's not that good. Like the original, it's just, you can't say much more about it. The original is one of the best ones without even arguing it.
Yeah. And do you put in, since it's number two, and we'll get to your number one in a minute, but do you put both the Japanese release and the American Raymond Burr release in number two? Do you feel like they're pretty well seated in that number two for you?
Yeah, I watch King of the Monsters. The best part about it is Raymond Burr. Sure, Godzilla's in it as well, but he, just the way he acts in that movie, like he really took that seriously. He didn't do it as a joke, like I was saying with 85. He actually really liked Godzilla, and you can definitely tell with his performance in the American version. The Japanese cut is superior, but when you watch the American version, he's the best thing in that movie, is because he takes it so seriously. But yeah, for me, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, they both have that serious tone. They don't try to make it a comedy in the U.S. release or anything like that. So that's a testament to the re-cutting of that. And what's cool is also that it's kind of, I call it Japanese-lish, because at times it's dubbed, at times they're speaking Japanese with a translator for Raymond Burr. So I think that's kind of a neat way to cut that film together for an American audience. So, there was definitely some tender loving care in doing that as right as they could have done it with what they had to work with, because I know, you could go back and say some of the places would confuse a Japanese audience because he's translating things that's happening over here, and that's definitely not what they're saying, and you might say that's controversial, but at the time, that's what they had to work with, and I think for what they came out with, I don't know if I could do a better job, honestly. I just don't think I could. So I think what they came up with was really good, and it brought Godzilla to mainland here, United States. So that's what got us to be fans is the fact that it had a American release. So that's great. Now that being your number two, that makes it interesting that it's not your number one. Let's hear it.
My number one, Godzilla vs. Biollante. That's my favorite Godzilla film. That's my favorite movie, period. It's just my favorite movie. It's very dark. It's not as dark as the original, but it's very dark. Godzilla in it is great. Biollante as the puppet, it's just so well done. The special effects in that movie were amazing. The characters in it, depending on which Godzilla movie you watch, you know, people will say, oh, the human characters aren't interesting or they're stupid. But Biollante, the cast in it is like, you don't really watch one character and you're like, this is really dumb. I mean, honestly, I think Biollante has the best dubbing in the franchise. I think that's the best well done dub. And I actually prefer to watch it in the dub only because, one, I'm used to that, and two, if you watch the Japanese version, the American actors don't sound really convincing. You know, it's like, kiss you
True.
guys. You know, it's an Indian agent. And it's like, you're an American. Like, even in the dub, he's like, it's that Indian agent again. It's like, okay, that's an American guy, but not an Indian agent. But, and I mean, yeah, and I mean, I have it right here. Like, this is my childhood copy, you know, like the 85. This is my childhood copy. You know, this is how I watched it before the Echo Bridge. Now expensive Blu-ray and DVD. Before that came out, that was the only way I could watch it, or the VHS copy. But I mean, no matter even the resolution or whatever, I just think it's one of the best Godzilla movies, period.
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of everything. A great human drama. It's got a psychic. It's got action. It's got Little Shop of Horrors kind of thrown in there too, with the plant monster. It goes into the spiritual aspect because the spirit of what's her name, Erica. Yep. Being in Biollante, and the first, as I understand it, well, I guess villainous kaiju. Let's say that, being female. You know, Mothra, you might say sometimes referred to as male or female Mothra, but as a foe to Godzilla. But this one is definitely the villain in this. This is the antagonist, being the female, Biollante, which a lot of people didn't, maybe not have caught that watching it. But I think that's another little aspect of that film that makes it great. And it's just got a little bit of everything. And it's the sequel that we were, if you didn't see it as a kid, 85 kind of left you somewhat of a cliffhanger, and you think, is Godzilla dead, or is he kind of resting inside that volcano? And if you didn't see it, in the VHS copies that were coming out, because it didn't come out, I don't know if it came out theatrically in the US or not, but I was a kid, so I didn't see it regardless. But so it was a while before we felt like we got a resolution to 85 of him jumping into Mount Mihara, and there he is coming out with the victorious Godzilla theme. Love that scene.
Oh yeah, that, and honestly, even I mean, because I think Satsuma even said it. If you, Battle for Earth, he comes out of Mount Fuji in Battle for Earth, and it's so conflicting because it's like, which one? For me personally, I mean, just amazement. Probably, it's tough because I don't know which volcano, him coming out of the volcano, is better. Because Satsuma said one of the most dangerous things he did was that Mount Fuji eruption in Battle for Earth, when you see him coming out of the volcano and he's like walking, and he's in the Ghidorah Goji suit, really the Bio Goji suit, and because obviously explosions are just going off all around him, and he's just like trying to go around, like walk forward. But in Biollante, you just see that moment. And you're just like, oh, that's so, like, and just seeing the new suit, like, and it's beautifully shot too. Obviously, it's beautifully shot, and just the suit is so convincing in that movie. Like, I mean, 84, except the Cybot. When you see the suit, it looks really good from, like, especially certain angles. It looks really, really good. 84, but 89, you can look at it in any direction, and you're just like, that thing looks really. He looks intimidating. Like, don't mess with him. And that was like because they, in the Heisei series, they use the like mini, like robotic for the facial expressions. Like, even that looks good. There's the shots where Godzilla's like, you see him like shake his head and he kind of turns, and it's also really gory too, with him getting impaled in his hand. And it's so good. I mean, it's funny because I watched that when I was 8. When I was 8 years old, I watched that film, and you think as a kid, you would think, oh, it's really dark, or, you wouldn't really like it. It was so weird because I think that was pretty much like one of the first movies I ever hyped. Like, I actually got really excited because I remember after I watched 1985, I remember my dad's ex-girlfriend, she was on iOffer and she said, "Oh, there's a sequel called Godzilla's Brillanti," and she said it says Godzilla fights a Rose, and I went, Godzilla fights a Rose, and then I watched the trailer and I looked up old YouTube videos, and I'm like, this looks really good. And then I remember when they were flying the helicopter over Mount Mahar, and you see like Mickey being like, "Oh, Godzilla's awake," and then they see him moving in there. I remember I would call my dad and my brother, being like, guys, he's gonna come out of the fucking false alarm. And then when he comes out, I was like, guys, this is it. And then they were like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Like they saw that shot of him just coming out of Mount Mahar roaring, and it's like, oh, it's so good. And even now when I watch it, it's like, oh, it's my favorite movie.
Yeah, the one of the big things about a good Godzilla film is a good initial reveal, and that one definitely had it. And like you said, coming out of a volcano, wow, yeah, how dangerous, but man, does it make a good shot. So yeah, excellent.
Explosion. Yeah,
excellent choices on your list. I don't think I can argue with anyone. I didn't hear All Monsters Attack or anything like that.
No. I mean, I will say it's weird. I don't think it's it's weird. I will say this. I think 1998 is a very despicable Godzilla movie. I mean, that's kicking a dead horse. It's like saying Phantom Menace is the worst Star Wars movie. It's pretty much like, duh. But I mean, it's like, All Monsters Attack, is it bad? Yes. I mean, it is. I mean, I understand, because it was a cash grab, obviously. It's a very, for people who don't know, it was a very like cash grabby movie with the stock footage. The only new special effects shots were Manila, Gabra, and then the final fight at the end. But I don't know, like when I was a kid, I would always watch that. And when I was always sick, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but whenever I'm sick, even now, I'll always put on Godzilla versus Megalon. I don't know why. Like when I'm sick, like actually in December, I actually had COVID. Like I actually got COVID back in December, and thankfully I didn't get the worst of it. There's people that get it really terribly, but I did lose my sense of taste and smell, and you don't want to know what that feels like, by the way, to you and to anybody. You don't want to know what that feels like. Try drinking Starbucks Frappuccino bottle and eating popcorn and not even know what that tastes like. Wow. But yeah, when I was sick, I watched Megalon, like to make me feel better. I was like, all right, I'll put Megalon on. I just watched it. And then the only thing I remember from the Mystery Science Theater 3000 is at the very end when, Godzilla shakes hands with Jaguar and he turns around and the kid goes, "Bye-bye," and they go, "Shut up, you little twerp." I'm like, whenever I watch it, in my head, whenever he says bye-bye, I just hear "shut up." Like I just hear the guys go, "Shut up."
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
When we're sick, a good dose of Godzilla is what you need as a fan, right?
It's weird, the bad ones. It's like when you're sick, you watch the bad. I would say to anybody, if you're sick and you need something to cheer you up, watch the bad ones. Because if you watch good ones, you would think, well, sure, you can always watch which one you want, but I recommend watching the ones that you're like, okay, I haven't seen it in a long time. And Megalon, is it the best? No. I mean, no. I mean, I don't think obviously it's not the worst Godzilla movie ever made. It's just, I honestly like Gigan better than Megalon. Like Gigan, sure, is it like the human characters in it? I actually like in Gigan. It's weird. I actually like the human story in Gigan, even though sure it was like the comic book artist and then the cockroaches and all that. But yeah, but I mean, yeah, Megalon, I would watch that. Revenge. 98, I tried to watch it. I just moved, and the one night I had it, I was like, okay, what's a movie I have? And I saw 98 and went, oh. I was like, oh. And then I watch it, and I'm just like, what did I do, animal? What did I become? I mean, look at me. I don't do things like this. It's like, oh my God. But I don't know. I mean, if it wasn't for that movie, we wouldn't be where we are today. If they would have made the 94 John DeBont film, I think we'd be in a very different place right now in the fandom. Definitely legendary.
Yeah, I agree definitely, and yeah, some of the missed opportunities, but everything kind of leads us to where we are now. And what's exciting is Godzilla is still popular. We've got coming out soon, Godzilla versus Kong, and several other things that are in the works. And we just hope that they, stay true to the character. And so, great list, Tim. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and looking forward to some of the things I purchased from you coming in, of course. But as far as our lists that are out there, I think people on this YouTube show should just go ahead in their comment section, leave their top 10 list. Maybe we'll be surprised sometimes by the ones that they have way up top. And there's no wrong answers, I'd say, but I'd say there's a few of them that might surprise us. So but yeah, again, really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing with us your experience as a kaiju fan, and definitely going to have you on another show. So with that, Tim, thank you very much, and I'm going to leave you with the last word here.
Oh, Biollante.
Or was it?
Kiss you guys. Japanese version, not American version. Thank you guys. Yeah, then the Japanese version. Kiss you guys. Doesn't seem to be anybody important. Yeah, that's what I thought too. But what? It's not a bad sight. This isn't a beauty contest,
Tim Mayer with the last word. Excellent.